am Tony Baranowski from the Cedar Rapids Gazette. I'd like to welcome everybody here to this session, Leading in Iowa, a roundtable offering resources available to develop leadership skills through Iowa. What's available and what's missing? I am going to turn it over to each of you to kind of introduce yourself, your roles, and a little bit about your background, and then we'll dive in because 40 minutes is not a long time to talk about what you all do. Let's start out with you, Jade.
Thanks, Tony. And my name is Jade Plussel. I'm with Women Lead Change. I'm the program coordinator here. In addition to working at Women Lead Change, I wear a few different hats. I coach high school track at Cedar Rapids Prairie, and then I'm also a certified mental skills coach where I run my own business and do that. My role at Women Lead Change, I get to get my hands in just about all of the programs that we offer, which I'm eager to tell you more about as we work our way around. Do a lot of the content developing and get to just network with a lot of the leaders that are involved with Women Lead Change and our community at all levels of their leadership journey.
All right, Jessica.
Hi, Jessica Commissar with the Cedar Rapids Metro Economic Alliance. It's a lot of words, which means it's our Chamber of Commerce, our Economic Development Organization, and our Downtown District. So those three organizations merged, and the Cedar Rapids Metro Economic Alliance was born. I oversee our Leadership for 5 Seasons program. Throughout this session, I'll likely abbreviate that to LFS, just so I don't lose my voice after saying Leadership for 5 Seasons a million times over and over. But it is a wonderful, well-established program here in the community celebrating 40 years. And like Jade said, I'm really excited to teach you more about it. But I'm a born and raised Cedar Rapidian, super passionate about Cedar Rapids community, everything we have to offer, and just really excited to talk more about it. Also very passionate about workforce and especially our future workforce, our younger generation, and how can we help them become future leaders.
All right, Jesse, you're up.
Thanks, Tony. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessie McQuarrie. I am the Director of Programs at the Iowa Association of Business and Industry Foundation, also a long name, so we'll shorten it to ABI Foundation. And we are under our parent organization of the Iowa Association of Business and Industry. We are a 501c3 nonprofit foundation. We manage 3 statewide leadership programs, which is my primary role here. And that is our high school program called Business Horizons, our college program called Leadership Iowa University, and our adult program called Leadership Iowa. So happy to be here and excited to chat with everyone today.
Thank you all for making those introductions. They were right. It was much better coming from you than it would have been coming from me. So I'm going to turn it around and come right back to you, Jesse, to just go a little bit more in depth into the programming that you all offer and some of the history and evolution of it, because especially in your case, I think most Iowans are familiar with Leadership Iowa, but obviously you do a little bit more than that. And I know that Leadership Iowa continues to grow and change and do some different things. So tell us a little bit more.
Absolutely. Well, I will mostly focus on Leadership Iowa for the purpose of this conversation. As you mentioned, a lot of folks know more about Leadership Iowa than some of our other programming here, but we were excited to just celebrate our 40th anniversary just this past year, and excited to be among the other community programs like Leadership for 5 Seasons and now Lead DSM, the partnerships program, celebrating their 40 years. So Iowa just has a really strong history of leadership programs and recognizing the need for them across the state. We're just fortunate enough to do the statewide issues awareness program. And so we have been around for a long time. So this is our 41st class that we just started last week. We got done with our opening retreat in Jefferson. And we have 40 individuals that join us every year. It is an application process into Leadership Iowa. And we select 40 and we travel the state between October through June for 2-day sessions in a different Iowa community. And the reason why we call Leadership Iowa an Issues Awareness Program is because each one of those sessions is really honing in on a specific topic important to our state. So it may be education, economic development, or manufacturing, transportation, and some of those topics do rotate, but we're able to provide more in-depth knowledge about what's happening and how these issues and how these topics are impacting our state, as well as what communities across Iowa are doing to address some of those issues and take advantage of opportunities within those topics. So we are excited to continue this year. Our program, as you mentioned, it has changed throughout the years, but mostly it keeps us on our toes, moving from community to community. And we are excited to have a lot of great support across the state and to partner with community programs as well, because we feel that between the community programs and our statewide program, they really complement each other really well. So Leadership Iowa is what we spend the majority of our time on at the ABI Foundation. I mentioned our 2 youth programs. Our high school program, Business Horizons, has this year will be its 40th anniversary as well. And that is a 4.5-day program for Iowa high school students. That takes place about mid-July, and I like to refer to it as an innovation simulation or an entrepreneurship boot camp. And we host that at Central College for the last about 9 years we've been there. And we really just take high school students from all across the state, all corners of Iowa, grades 9 through 12, and they come join us for a week of innovation, solving problems, working together, learning to be future-ready leaders as we're all working together toward in our state, and doing a lot of different workshops and fun hands-on activities. Our college program is a similar time frame, Leadership Iowa University. We typically have about 20 to 25 college students with us from across Iowa. That's 4.5 days in August as well. And this is what we like to call opportunities awareness. So we are bringing these students in with us. We do some personal and professional development activities with them and really provide exposure to the awesome opportunities here in the state, hoping that they will stay and live and work here after they graduate.
Great. Thank you, Jessie. Jessica, your turn.
Awesome. So a lot is very similar to Jessie and especially Leadership Iowa, but Leadership for 5 Seasons has a couple branches. So we have our adult program, which is very similar to Leadership Iowa, but just focused on the Cedar Rapids metro area. It is also an application process. So each April we open up that application and then we accept typically 35 individuals for each class. This year, while we're celebrating our 40th anniversary, we thought it was only appropriate to have 40 individuals in the class. So this year is just a little unique, and the program starts in August with a 2-day out-of-town retreat. And then also similar to Leadership Iowa, then they meet for a full day once a month and focuses on a specific industry. So we have a history day, we have agriculture day is actually tomorrow, so really excited for that. Education, arts and culture, healthcare, every industry represented here in our community. And they kind of look at it as an adult field trip day of getting tours of businesses and getting connected with leaders from businesses in those industries. Have the opportunity to ask questions, learn more about how they can be involved in their organization. And then if there are any nonprofits that are also tied into that industry, I think Cedar Rapids has an amazing plethora of nonprofits that are in every industry, and a way to get involved in a deeper level from a volunteer perspective. So learning more about those opportunities. And then each class, when they end in May, they wrap up with a class project. So usually around November, the class will start to brainstorm an interest area And it's really difficult for 35 or 40 adults to agree on, one nonprofit to give back to, because everyone's so passionate, but they always do an amazing job at narrowing it down and having a full day, a hands-on labor of love project to wrap up their experience to give back to the community. There's also kind of a curriculum that goes along with it. So we have a facilitator that meets with them once for an hour for each their industry days. And we do true colors and strength finders just to kind of take a little bit of time for some self-reflection, both personally and professional development. Colors, for anybody who's taken that assessment, is super relatable and amazing. So that has a little bit of curriculum to it. And then the youth program is for area juniors in high school. So we have about 7 or 8 different area high schools that participate in the program. It is an application process, but the school counselors really help select those students that are going to participate in the program. It is a free program for the students. Very similar to the adult program. It is a August to March, so it ends just a little bit sooner, just to be respectful to their school schedules towards the end of the year. They have a 2-day out-of-town retreat at a Boy Scout camp in Central City. It's a blast. And then they meet once a month too for specific industry days. Very similar to the adult program. They get to learn about ways to get involved. I know when I was in high school, I knew my street and my school and my friend's neighborhood. And that was it. Anything outside of point A to point B, I knew nothing about. And so being able to open these students' eyes to what else is going on in their community or even a neighboring community is really important, and really used as a workforce retention tool, similar to what Jesse was talking about. After high school, if they want to move away for college, great, but we'd really love for them to come back. Or Cedar Rapids has amazing higher educational institutions that we can introduce them to. So just really, how do we keep our talent here and engaged and more than just surface level that we all kind of know when we're in high school. And then the executive program is for C-level execs and their significant other who are newly relocated to the Cedar Rapids area. So if they've moved it here between the past 1 to 3 years, they uprooted from Texas, for example, to come here for a job. Them and their spouse get to participate in a similar program, a monthly program to get connected to others in the community. It's a more intimate sized group, about 6 to 8 individuals. And, we just feel like it's really important for not only this new executive that's in town, but also their family to feel connected and have a sense of, where do they see themselves in the community, whether that's a nonprofit or inner circle, peer group, what have you. So those are the 3 main buckets of Leadership for 5 Seasons. And then we have an advisory board and a lot of oversight for alumni engagement and alumni events, things like that. So that is a little very high level about Leadership for 5 Seasons. Like I said, we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of the adult program this year. The youth program's been around for almost 30 years, so also very established in the community. And I'm just so honored to be able to run a program like this in the community.
That's great. That's great. Jade, as we turn to you, because you work for an organization that maybe is a little bit more specific, you might expect more specificity. These guys have wide, big buckets, but I understand that at Women Lead Change, you're really thinking about leadership from top to bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're not quite celebrating the 40-year mark yet, but this year we're celebrating 15 years and we've made a lot of progress. Of course, so much work to be done. Hopefully at some point we'll be on here and I'll be saying 40 years. But at Women Lead Change, we're really devoted to the development, advancement, and promotion of women in the workforce and their organizations as a whole. So as I mentioned initially, we take a lot of pride in being on the leadership journey with individuals from the beginning all the way through. So we offer various programs. We're mostly known for kind of our hallmark conferences, if you will. We have those in the Quad Cities, in Des Moines, and then here in Cedar Rapids. In fact, we will be in Des Moines on the 25th and 26th for one of our conferences, but we've really grown to more of those specific programs post-conference. It's very common after our conferences, we get emails, how do I get more involved? Or how can I practice these tactical leaderships consistently? And that's where our specific programs really came into play. So we offer an Advocates and Allies series. So that is a virtual series where we invite teams, men and women, everyone together. It's a virtual book series where they kind of work through that and the tactical information there. We offer an Elevate class. So Elevate is really catered towards emerging leaders. So that is a 6-month program. We meet monthly, and then you are placed into groups where you work on a capstone project with that group. We offer a Level Up class. This is a new organization that we started, and really that came from a need that was brought to our attention from members that are already involved in Women Lead Change, and that they simply asked, we need industry specific programs. So that program this year, which just came to a conclusion last week, was specific to leaders in manufacturing. So we were able to bring in local companies, Cedar Rapids, lots of manufacturing crew. So we dove into that. And then we also have our Women Connect group. So that is more of our senior level leaders of the surrounding area. We have one here in the corridor. We have the Des Moines, Quad Cities, and those are just those high level leaders sharing best practices. I'd have to say that that's one program that I enjoy the most because it's so interesting how so many different industries can come together and share and learn from one another. And then a new program that we started is our Girls with Goals program. So that is youth girls, really anywhere from like K through senior of high school. We do have a grant cycle where we give that grant to an organization K through 8, but the event is really catered towards bringing youth girls in and just kind of connecting them to their activity. So a lot of times what I saw in my job outside of Women Lead Change, coaching youth athletes, I saw a lot of parallels to, you know, the struggles that these youth girls face in their activity, whether it be show choir or basketball or track, very similar to what I see in adult women facing in their careers day to day. So we wanted to find a way to connect with these youth girls and start having the conversations that we have with these adult women, you know, when they're this big. That way, when they're this big, it's a lot easier to have those conversations. So making sure that we're just reaching these women, men, all of the above at all levels of leadership.
That's great. That's great. Thank you all for kind of giving us the breakdown here. And those really are a lot. We're talking about a lot of different opportunities for a wide array of people. I think when we spoke before, one of the last things we touched on was actually part of the header of this conversation, and it feels like it fits naturally right here, which is, what do you all see that's missing? What opportunities are missing for people out there? And I know, you know, you're in positions where when you see those vacancies, you're looking for ways to help, but you can't do everything all at once. So what do you see as gaps in leadership training for Iowans right now? Let's start with Jane.
Yeah, I would say one thing that I really see is not necessarily a lack in the programming, but I really encourage companies to make sure they're not just sending the usual suspects to these leadership programs. A lot of times, you know, when we hear the word leadership, we sometimes think about, you know, the next person who's going to be at that high level, but we need leadership skills in all levels of a company, really making sure that, you know, you are focusing on some of those individual contributors. And I like to use that term, the unusual suspects, you know, giving everybody that opportunity, because at every single level, you need leadership tools and making sure everyone has that opportunity because the programming is there.
Jessica, how about you?
Yeah, and while I don't have an answer or a solution for this, over time, but definitely diversity in leadership. So whether it's in leadership programs, but also just from our community businesses and organizations alone. And as we all know, diversity means a lot of things, race, ethnicity, ability, gender identity. And so I think, kind of going back to Jade, who are your unusual suspects? And I had a representative from a company talk to me about someone who they wanted to have apply for LFS this past year. And they were like, well, she's kind of quiet. Great. She's kind of shy, she's kind of new in their role. That's awesome. Like that's who we need. These leadership programs aren't just for people who are very outgoing and your cookie cutter, what you would imagine a leadership class to look like. So for leadership for 5 seasons, when it comes time to accept individuals into the program, we look at a lot of different variables. It is not just who had the 35 top highest scores. It is gender balance, industry balance, race, ethnicity balance, LGBTQ. It's a lot of things, because we would be doing our participants a complete disservice if we didn't look at that and just beyond whatever they scored in their interview or for their application. So again, while I don't have a solution yet, I think it's really important for all of us to come together and, within your own organizations, are there people that we can lift up to diversify what it means to be a leader?
Thank you. Jesse, I'm going to turn it over to you too, but I also want to mention to those that are following along with us, if you want to ask these ladies any questions, you can plug those into the chat on Whova, and we'll do our best to relay them. So Jesse, take it away.
Sure. Well, I will absolutely echo what Jessica and Jade mentioned about diversity. That is one of our really main factors for determining our Leadership Iowa classes every year, and why it does take some folks 2, 3, 4 times before they join us for the year that they're meant to join us for in Leadership Iowa. Because we are looking for that diverse thought, diverse opinion, and bringing all of those minds and people into one room to explore what these issues and opportunities are. And I think looking at just our state as a whole, what other opportunities there are in leadership programming, and that really coincides with what our big issues might be right now when we're looking at things like workforce. And Jade mentioned their new program for women in manufacturing. I think industry specific programming there's still a need there. And, as much as we would love to take hundreds of people into Leadership Iowa every year, we know that's just not the case. And same thing with all of our programs. So it's a great opportunity for statewide awareness and bringing like-minded individuals in their industries together to kind of see what's going on. So I think that's an opportunity. And as we're looking at this idea of brain drain and losing our great young people outside of the state because they see opportunities elsewhere, how do we continue to attract and engage those individuals? And it goes back to some of that diversity conversation of lifting up that next generation of leaders and plugging them into these leadership programs and opportunities, whether that's internal or external in a company. I think there's just a lot that can be done. And we also are then, of course, leading into our rural Iowa communities. There isn't a lack of leaders in those communities, but again, it's about lifting up those people. And we've already kind of mentioned it already, but you look at leaders, and that's the mom at all the PTA meetings or baking the cookies for the bake sale. That might be a brand new individual who just moved into the community but really wants to be engaged and wants to be involved. Or it might be the entrepreneur or small business owner who maybe doesn't have a ton of time to spare, but needs to be engaged in those conversations and be at the table when it comes to, looking at our rural communities and what those communities need. So that's one of the best things also that comes out of Leadership Iowa when we have these conversations, is because that is one of our diversity factors for selection, is ensuring we've got individuals from all across the state and all corners, rural and urban, to not further divide the two, so to speak, but bring them together and see how we can learn from one another and make those connections. So I think there's a lot of opportunities, and we're all really, as I mentioned, all of our leadership programs are working together, and we're all stepping up to try and have this kind of continuation and continuum of leadership opportunities. But I think there's definitely room to grow.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and Jesse, you touched on it a little bit earlier as well, that you all don't view each other as competition, and every city has its own kind of derivative of what you all are doing. I think it's really impressive that within your kind of effort across the state in honing leadership, that and really I think we're seeing this in more industries and businesses statewide and probably nationwide. There's a lot more cooperation than there is pretending that we're in any kind of competition, because we're all better off with a little bit better trained leaders across the board.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, in going back to what we addressed when we spoke before, Jade, you talked a little bit about a research study that you recently did on people leaving the workforce. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we just were kind of looking at some trends during the pandemic and COVID, and a lot of times that's what helps us develop our programs. We are very innovative at Women Lead Change in the sense that we look at what's relevant, what's needed, hence the industry specific programming. But what we saw, and a lot of time what a lot of conversation that is had during our Women Connect groups, is who's leaving the workforce. There's a lot of conversation in retaining and retention. And what we're seeing people who have exited the workforce, but then are really struggling getting back in, maybe because of the lack of, the resources that they need. I often see, women who leave the workforce, they decide to take time off to be home with children, and they don't feel like they have the tools that they need to get back in. Technology, it's improving so fast that can be kind of intimidating. So looking at ways that we can kind of provide programming for people who are looking to enter the workforce again, which is also hard when we talk about that level of leadership. Just because somebody takes a break from the workforce doesn't mean that they're starting again from ground zero. So making sure that we're making, everybody feel welcome at whatever level that they're at.
That's great. Jessica, could you talk a little bit about how you've seen leadership change in the last few years, especially as as we all dealt with COVID and people kind of reevaluated priorities. How has that shaped your programming?
Yeah, I would say, our demographic for Leadership for 5 Seasons is pretty broad. A couple, in their 20s, mostly, 30s and 40s, but I definitely, since I've started overseeing the program beginning of 2020, I feel like we are doing a lot better at seeing the unusual suspects. So I think leadership has gotten, just like our everyday lives, we're getting a little more casual with things since COVID. Not as buttoned up anymore, a lot more relaxed. And so I think companies are starting to rethink their priorities, and that means restructuring teams and which teams are needed, things like that. And so sending more people through that are younger or newer in their role. I think that's been one biggest change that we've seen, which I love. like Jay talked about, kind of emerging leaders. So I've been seeing a lot more of that.
What about you, Jesse? I mean, when we talk about leaders, especially leaders in business, you're probably talking about people who, traditionally anyway, are willing to invest 50, 60 plus hours a week in work. Do you think that that has changed, and that the people that are coming into leadership programs now are coming in with a little bit more work-life balance in mind?
I think so. And to Jessica's point, I mean, we all hopped on Zoom in 2020, and we saw the cats walking across the screen and the dogs barking and the babies crying, and we just had to treat everyone with a little bit more grace. And I think we're seeing that trend, and also just really that authenticity. I think being an authentic leader has really been lifted up as a solid quality in leadership, and that, not everyone's perfect. Our lives are a little messy every once in a while, and we are trying to juggle a lot. As Jade mentioned, how many working moms left the workforce because they needed to find a childcare solution? And I think we all kind of banded together. So that's what we're seeing on this end. It's you see the support of one another. You see a lot of bravery and willing to make some of those changes. And I think we saw that this past year with Leadership Iowa, and individuals looking to maybe make a change of some kind in their lives, and needing that support system and having that support system, because we understand that we are actually human, and we do need a little bit of breathing room and a little bit of time. And I just think some of those characteristics of leaders that maybe we had pushed off to the side, where it's how many hours we work, how much crunch time we put in, what does our title say, what does our resume say? And I think instead we're lifting up those characteristics of, authenticity and honesty and just kindness and generosity. I think I've been seeing that shift, and we've been having those conversations here as well.
I think that was one of the things that and I'm not sure who touched on it really briefly when we spoke before, but the kind of people that are applying or being referred to you has changed as well in terms of demographics, maybe. Can you talk a little bit about that? Anybody who's ready?
Sure. Well, I will. Oh, sorry. I would just say, it is looking at the initiatives within DE&I. We have seen a lot of, looking at what makes a leader in these companies, and how do we lift those people up. We have been seeing younger audiences at both our ABI events and our conference, as well as applying for Leadership Iowa, because we're seeing that generational shift right now in our workforce and in our leadership, of course. And I think we're seeing that on this end, that we're looking to that next generation of leaders, and how do we prepare them, and how do we maybe jumpstart that leadership journey to get them prepared for whatever the next step might be.
All right, we knew it was going to go fast. We talked for more than an hour when we met before. We knew it was going to go fast. We only have 5 minutes left. So I want to give each of you kind of an opportunity to put a bow on this and give us your takeaway from this conversation with each other, and what you think our audience should walk away with. We will start with Jay.
I can start. Two quick things. Tony, you touched on this earlier, but viewing leadership programs as competitors to each other is just far from the truth. Just in the ICR region, Iowa City, Cedar Rapids alone, we have our program in Cedar Rapids. Jade is upstairs running hers, and Marion has a program, Iowa City has a program, and we truly are better because of each other. And I think if you are looking at taking that next step and joining a leadership program, just whichever one fits your geographical area and passions. Our industries in Cedar Rapids and focus are a lot different than those down in Iowa City. Education, healthcare down in Iowa City. We have a lot of manufacturers. It's just a lot different. There is no one program that is better than the rest. We just had a person go through 2 years ago, and he is now in Leadership Iowa, and vice versa. There's people that have done Leadership Iowa, and they kind of want to focus a little more on Cedar Rapids, so they apply for leadership for 5 seasons. So I met Jesse last year at a summit in Newton and heard from a lot of rural communities across the state that are either in infancy stage of creating their leadership program. It's been going on for several years, and I think that's amazing, especially in rural communities. So these programs are everywhere across the state, whether it's through economic development organizations or chambers. They are out there, and I'm so happy I have fellow peers to look to for ideas and suggestions. And just being in Iowa, being a leader in Iowa, we have so much to be thankful for. We have so much access to company leaders and CEOs and presidents to really make these programs and opportunities really extraordinary compared to if we were in a larger metropolitan. So we have a lot of opportunities here in Iowa to lead and to build future leaders, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. Jade?
Yeah, one thing that I would really encourage and hope that those attending can take away from this is I use that term, sending your unusual suspects. I think that, in a time where we talk so much about recruiting and retaining your employees, one way to really, really show your employees that you care about them and you're invested in them is sending them to leadership programs, whatever that may be. I really don't believe that all leaders are natural born leaders. They just need the right tools to become those leaders. So if you're looking to develop your team, to develop your company, send them to leadership programs. It's absolutely, you will see a return on your investment, and you'll also find some loyalty in that employee because they'll see that you see something in them as well. Quite frankly, that's probably the best part of my job is getting those emerging leaders day one, feeling like they maybe don't even belong in a leadership class, and then watching them as they work their way through, our high level leadership classes. And I get to say, remember when you thought you didn't belong here? And it's just really neat watching them involved. So get everybody involved in any type of leadership program.
That's great. Jesse?
I get to echo Jade and Jessica for everything at the points that they made. That is one of the most rewarding parts when you see that first night where people are looking around, your participants are looking around the room wondering if they belong there. And imposter syndrome is real at that point. And then you see them at the end of their experience thinking, why did I ever question this? Why did I, don't let the term leadership throw you off or deter you from having these experiences. Not everyone looks at themselves as leaders, but they should, just by raising their hand and offering to do something. If your community doesn't have a leadership program, contact us. We are happy to help. We belong to a national organization called the Association of Leadership Programs, and I serve as our Iowa ambassador. And we swap resources all the time, not only within Iowa, but within other states as well. It only takes one person to raise their hand and say, hey, I think our community should host a leadership program, just even whether it's for young professionals, emerging leaders, or just people who want to come together. We can help set that up for you and provide you with some resources and connect you with maybe some great references and great people. So just be involved in any way you can. Nominate individuals from your community to participate in these programs. Nominate them for Leadership Iowa. You can do that at leadershipiowa.com. I got to put that plug in. So send them on through. We'd love to have them. And we hope if you haven't participated that you yourself would participate as well.
Thank you, Jesse. Jesse McQuarrie from ABI, Jessica Commissar from the Cedar Rapids Metro Economic Alliance. That is a lot of words, you're right. And Jade Plessel from Women Lead Change. Thank you all so much. I knew you would be great. You were great. We really appreciate you taking time to talk to our audience today. And I hope you all have a lovely Thursday night. Thank you to those of you that are tuning in. And remember, we have another full day of Iowa Ideas tomorrow. Make sure you come back.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
Tony.